The story begins in Class 2 Amperes on a day in April, where students were chatting with each other. The narrator explained that the curtain was about to rise on a heroine race revolving around a single man. The scene then shifted to 3 guys who called out to Izumi, asking him to hit karaoke after school. Izumi, with a tense look on his face, wondered what was with the sudden invite. All 3 guys yelled at Izumi, telling him that the Siren High girls were coming as well, and that it was the one place where looks were strengthened and family background could shine. Izumi thought to himself that it was a mixer and then remarked that the 3 of them were idiots. The 3 guys became confused while Izumi explained that it was just tightening the rope around their own necks. Izumi then flaunted his hair and thought that if he went to the mixer, he would end up monopolizing all the girls for himself and sighed at how pitiful the 3 of them were. All 3 guys went silent, and Izumi also fell silent. Embarrassed, Izumi said that they should throw him a retort or something. Otherwise, it just looked like he bombed them. One of the 3 guys responded by saying that Izumi did bomb, and then all 3 of them started muttering. One of them thought that Izumi should not say it in the first place if he was going to get embarrassed. The second thought about what to do with a question mark and suggested maybe they did not actually need Izumi, and the third suggested finding someone better at talking. Izumi became frustrated, saying that they invited him and then treated him like this. The narrator then remarked that a man being so bashful was just pathetic. Izumi thought to himself that Satoru and his friends were just too much. While he was about to finish his thought, Izumi suddenly noticed something and asked what was going on. At that moment, Amane Amasaki appeared and greeted Izumi with a good morning. Izumi recognized Amane and noted that it had been quite a while. Another girl ran up and hugged Amane, exclaiming how long it had been. The girl then asked Amane about her modeling work and remarked that it looked like she had taken a long break. Amane explained that her dad told her to broaden her horizons, so she went to Los Angeles with him. The girl, looking surprised, began chatting with Amane, commenting that going overseas was amazing and recalling that Amane's dad was a designer. Amane said that it was not that big of a deal and mentioned that she had bought souvenirs for everyone. The class immediately started shouting, and one of the students asked if she would be in trouble since there was a quiz in the first period that day. Amane, with a smug face, told them not to worry because she had done all the preparation. Another student reacted with surprise, saying that it was crazy and just as expected of the top student in the class. Amane then remarked that it could not be helped and declared that she would teach anyone who was lost. The narrator explained that Amane Amasaki was a working model, a fashion leader for teenage girls, a top student and extremely social, and that was her reputation in the class. The scene shifted, showing a girl peeking into the classroom and calling for Amane to go home. Inside the classroom, Amane and Izumi were studying. The girl commented that it was another study lesson. Amane apologized, while the girl turned to Izumi and said that it was wasted effort since, even with Amane teaching him, Izumi was still barely scraping by. Izumi told her to shut up and insisted that she watch him get that recommendation. Amane apologized again and refused the invitation, saying maybe next time. The girl then commented that Izumi was working hard too and that she kind of pitied him. As the girl left, she praised Amane as such a goddess and warned Izumi not to cause her too much trouble. Amane then slammed her head on the desk and, in desperation, apologized for making Izumi pity her. She begged him to teach her how to study. Izumi sighed and asked her how long she would keep pretending to be a model student. Amane replied that it was already too late to stop. Izumi wondered to himself why everyone kept getting fooled by her. A flashback followed, showing Izumi handing out notes for Amane when she had been absent. Izumi thought about how Amane was so busy with work that she barely had time to study and had actually been on the verge of repeating a year the previous summer. Since then, Izumi had been running study sessions, drilling key points into her as soon as possible. Another memory showed Amane flaunting and claiming that it could not be helped and that she would teach anyone who was lost. Izumi thought that everything had started when Amane's grades went up, causing her to become full of herself and start saying that she would teach others. Now she could not back out of it. Izumi pointed out that she had done the same thing again that day. Amane admitted that she simply could not say no when people asked her. Returning to the present, Izumi was narrating a formula to Amane while thinking that, even if she was just pretending to be an honor student, the fact that she was absorbed enough to teach other people was impressive. He acknowledged that Amane must have been smart to begin with, and, on top of that, she worked hard, squeezing in study time between her jobs. The bell rang, and Izumi said that they would call it a day since he had work afterward. Amane looked up at him and asked if he was the one pretending to be dumb and unable to back out of it. Izumi explained that he could get really good grades when he tried, but life was easier when nobody expected anything from him. He added that just watching Amane work hard was more than enough for him. Amane became flustered, held onto his shirt, and with an almost crying face asked him not to tell anyone that she was the one being taught. She told Izumi that the only person she showed her weak side to was him. Izumi reassured her that he knew, and Amane responded that it was all she wanted to say. Izumi then left the classroom. Left alone, Amane sighed and muttered, "Good grief," before saying that Izumi totally liked her. While sitting on a chair with the notes, she kicked her feet and thought to herself that Izumi would not go this far just for a friend. She wondered if this meant it was mutual love and considered that if one of them confessed, they would be together. However, she worried that she had never gone out with a boy before, and if they became a couple, things might get awkward. Frustrated, Amane slammed her hand on the desk and declared that there was no need to rush. She thought to herself that she was the one who truly saw Izumi's charm, but even if there was no competition, the situation was just far too frustrating. The scene shifted to the assembly ground where students had gathered. A speaker was addressing them, saying a few words that most students considered just more blabbering. However, the atmosphere suddenly changed, and everyone became attentive when the speaker announced the next segment, a word from the student council president. It was Hakuya Shiragiku. Hakuya stepped forward and asked everyone to settle down. She introduced herself as Shiragiku, the student council president, and reminded them that the sports festival would be held the following month. She explained that especially for the first years, by now they had gotten used to school life, and some of them might have started letting their guard down. As Hakuya spoke, the students whispered among themselves. One student admired how dazzling Shiragiku-senpai was again that day. Another commented that even Yoshino-senpai from the basketball club had been rejected by her. A different student remarked that it was as expected of the Ice Princess. Another pointed out to Izumi that Hakuya was the heiress of the famous Shiragiku confectionery, and with her beauty and top ranking among the best nationwide in exams, she was unmatched. Izumi thought to himself that she was completely like a flower on a high cliff, far out of their league. Hakuya continued her speech, warning that carelessness could lead to injury, and encouraged everyone to work together to make the sports festival a memorable one. With that, she ended her address and left the stage. As she stepped down, she gave a glance toward Izumi and smiled, while Izumi said nothing. The speaker then resumed and said, the scene shifted to Izumi entering his house, calling out that he was home as he removed his shoes. Shiragiku greeted him, welcoming him back from work and asking if he wanted dinner. Izumi thought to himself, Ice Princess, huh? He reflected that Shiragiku-senpai lived next door in the same apartment complex and often dropped by to cook dinner for him. Both of their families ran major companies as heirs apartments, and their parents had once decided they would be engaged. However, Izumi was no longer the heir, and the parent chosen for political reasons had now become nothing more than his former fiancé. Shiragiku was already beside the table with dinner prepared, and Izumi thought that at least that was how it was supposed to be. She called out to him and reached out to give him a welcome home hug. Izumi responded, greeting her politely, and she pouted before smiling brightly and patting him, saying, There, well done. Izumi grew frustrated, thinking that to hide their former fiancé relationship, they avoided interacting at school as much as possible. After all, he was already a high school student. Yet the face she showed him when they were alone had not changed since middle school. Shiragiku told Izumi that he would always be like a little brother to her. Even so, Izumi found her presence overwhelming. Trying to regain composure, he told himself to get it together and pushed her gently. Shiragiku then suggested they eat before the food got cold, and Izumi thought that her sense of personal distance was completely off in private. After washing the dishes, Izumi apologized for always troubling her. Shiragiku replied that it was fine, as she was already making her own dinner anyway, and remarked that older sisters naturally wanted to spoil their younger brothers, which surprised Izumi. She then asked Izumi somewhat teasingly if there was something he should say about her cooking. Startled, Izumi replied that it had been really delicious and apologized for not saying something so simple. Shiragiku pouted and asked how delicious it had been. Izumi answered that it was the best in the world, which left her shocked and flustered. Shiragiku ran out of the house, slamming the door, declaring that she would make it for him every day from tomorrow. Izumi muttered that it was way too much and that he would feel bad, glancing at the beef stew she had prepared. He thought that she was way too fired up. Outside, Shiragiku stood happily, thinking that she had secured another big win that day by using her former fiancé status to completely take over his life, a life-and-wife strategy. She reflected that she had forced her way past her parents' opposition, pulled strings to secure the room next to Izumi, and now, with spare keys, There was no way for any other girl to wedge herself into his life. Shiragiku thought back to middle school, remembering that Izumi-kun had been the only one who saw her not as the daughter of a big corporation but simply as a girl. She reflected that they might have understood something about each other back then, but ever since he lost that position, things between them had felt painful. Still, she believed she was the only one who truly understood him. Resolutely, she promised herself that she would wait for Izumi-kun, and that someday when she inherited her father's will, she would definitely stand by his side until the end. The scene then shifted to Izumi sitting and thinking about how all the students had split into the bento group and the store-buying group during lunch. He reflected that no one would ever guess that this lunch was actually handmade by Shiragiku-senpai. In his thoughts, he heard her voice saying, "Here you go, Izumi-kun, today's portion." He continued thinking that even though he felt bad about relying on her every day, it was honestly a huge help for someone living alone. He finally decided to eat. Suddenly, he heard someone yelling not to come near Inori and saw Satoru. Izumi wondered what Satoru was even doing. The scene shifted to Satoru on his knees, calling out to Izumi. Haru Kasuga explained that a man with a filthy, lustrous face had been trying to approach Inori. Izumi then saw Inori and kicked Satoru inside the classroom, saying that it was probably his fault. He asked why the two of them were in the second-year classroom, thinking that despite being first years, they were already famous around the school. Inori, with her adorable aura, was super popular with the boys, the little angel, while Haru, the crazy dog who bit to protect Inori, was the little devil. By some twist of fate, both were also his club juniors. Inori asked Senpai if they were having club today. Izumi replied that she could have just messaged him. Inori added that they were both free that day, and Izumi agreed that it would be a club day. They both acknowledged this. Inori then asked if he had read the book she had recommended the other day. Izumi apologized, explaining that he had bought it but had not yet got around to reading it. Suddenly, Haru blocked him. Surprised, Izumi exclaimed her name. Haru told him not to get all lovey-dovey with Inori, saying that even small talk was off limits. The two then left, with Haru turning back to Izumi and calling him a damn leecher. Another student peeked at Izumi and asked if they were fighting. Izumi explained that he had just wanted to tell her he bought the book, and the girl commented that it was rough. Finally the bell rang, and all of them were shown in the library preparation room, sitting and reading books. Izumi thought to himself that their library, their literature club, or more precisely, their literature appreciation society was nothing more than a small circle of 3 people, reading books and chatting. Izumi reflected that he had originally been the only member left, and had planned to dissolve the club as soon as everyone else graduated. He remembered telling himself that after graduation, Izumi should take over the literature club himself. By chance, 2 new first years had joined, so the club had to continue. Another student in Izumi's thoughts had told him that if he felt like it, he could keep it going. Back in the present, Izumi observed that Inori was, as always, focused on her book, while the girl next to her was playing games. The gamer asked Izumi what was wrong, and Izumi dismissed her with a complaint about being looked at with pervy eyes, thinking that the girl did not even pretend to read and simply gamed non-stop. He reasoned that her whole reason for joining the club was to protect Inori. The gamer declared that the culprit was the little sister, which frustrated Inori and drew Izumi's attention. Izumi could not believe it and silently pleaded that it be a lie as he closed his book. He then protested that she was not the culprit and accused the gamer of lying. The gamer insisted she hated spoilers with a passion, and Izumi protested that even fake spoilers were still spoilers and that she should not make him paranoid for no reason. Izumi complained that the gamer was being punished for neglecting her club junior and spending club time reading, and he wondered whether she even knew what the club was supposed to be. Annoyed by her habit of toying with him for amusement, Izumi stood up, pulled a chair, and dragged it closer to her. As he grew flustered, Izumi confronted Haru, accusing her of always treating him like an enemy and of forbidding him from going near Inori. He suggested that Haru might be deliberately trying to get his attention. Inori watched the exchange without intervening. Izumi even reached out and touched Haru's chin, teasing that she simply could not be honest. Haru became very flustered and blushed, and Izumi then backed off, sat away from her, and warned that if Haru kept acting like that, someone might jump her one day. Haru, frustrated, threw a book at Izumi, yelling at him. Izumi, unfazed, told her that if the hit would knock some sense into her, she should fix her attitude, but the impact knocked him down. Haru then shouted, calling him a pervert and telling him to go die. Inori followed Haru, while Izumi got up, thinking that he had expected more of a "what are you acting cool for you creep" kind of comeback, but realized he had gone too far this time. He picked up the book Haru had thrown and noticed it was the same one he had been reading. Haru looked gloomy. Another student commented that it had been entirely Haru's fault, pointing out that she had read ahead just to be on the same page as Izumi, but her actions had completely missed the point. The student teased that she clearly wanted him to fuss over her that badly. Haru protested but then reflected that it was supposed to be a fated reunion. A flashback appeared in her thoughts, remembering the middle school punk and how she had gotten carried away just because Izumi looked a bit pretty. Izumi, noticing the tension, interjected, asking how far they were going and commenting that the little kittens were already scared. He got lightly beaten by 2 other guys after saying this. Back in the present, Haru lamented that even though she called it fate, Senpai didn't remember it all and treated Inori all lovey-dovey while treating her completely differently, as always, which was frustrating. The scene then shifted to Izumi entering the school, where a girl was standing ahead of him. Someone whispered to Amane that Izumi was right there, and Amane replied nervously, insisting it wasn't like that. Another voice from above the stairs remarked that Izumi-kun always passed by at this time, and maybe today they would finally work up the courage to greet him. Haru, standing nearby, said she didn't care about Senpai or anything like that, while her friend suggested it might just be to say hi to him alone. 3 girls greeted Izumi. The first said, "Good morning, Izumi-chi." The second said, "Good morning, Suzumi-kun," and Haru added, "Senpai, good morning." Izumi looked at them, but suddenly, one girl stood up and confessed, "I love you, please go out with me." The other girls were stunned and looked at both of them. The narrator remarked that there was only one sure way to win the heroine race, being able to say, "I love you," properly. The girl, Nano Nanase, held Izumi's hand, and the narrator continued. And thus, the Izumi Suzume chapter had already drawn its curtain. All 3 girls reacted in disbelief, each saying Izumi's name and thinking to themselves that they would not hand him over to anyone. The narrator explained that the outcome of the heroine race was still unknown, and that the battle between the losing heroines and the one who could properly say, "I love you," was only just beginning.